Joe Biden's very bad border policies, again, front and center. The Department of Homeland Security battles the threat of sleeper cells waking up amid the conflict with Iran, specifically concerns over unvetted Iranian nationals allowed into our interior.
Fox News' Bill Malugin has more on this story from New York. Hi, Bill.
Well, Dagan and Guy, our southern border was open and unsecure during much of the Biden presidency, and that is now renewing concerns about possible Iranian sleeper cells who may have slipped into the country during those years. Take a look at this. Internal Border Patrol data obtained by Fox News reveals there were just over 1,500 Iranians caught crossing the southern border illegally from fiscal year 2021 through fiscal year 2024, with the overwhelming majority of those apprehensions happening in 2023 and 2024. Of that number, 729 Iranians were released into the U.S. That's nearly half of all the Iranian nationals who illegally crossed the border. Fox News saw Iranians and other Middle Eastern migrants crossing illegally into Jacumba, California almost every day and night in spring of 2024. Most of the Iranians told me they were fleeing the regime.
Iran.
You're all
from Iran. Why'd you come?
No freedom.
No freedom?
Yes, in Iran. Iran is a dangerous country. No freedom for speak, for writing, for singing, for thinking.
But an even bigger security concern for the U.S. is the more than 2 million known Gotaways who slipped across the border during Biden's presidency without ever being apprehended.
We did see thousands of people come into our country over an open border under the Biden administration that came from the Middle East. We have always been aware of the fact that some of these folks that may have come into our country could have potentially been radicalized. And so that is why we continue every day to go out and identify individuals that could be a threat to our homeland.
And there's no way for us to know how many, if any, of those Iranians that crossed the border illegally were on a terror watch list because the Biden administration repeatedly denied Fox News FOIA requests for that data, saying they had privacy concerns for the people on the terror watch list and that disclosing the data would not be in the public interest. We'll send it back to you.
Bill Malugin, thank you so much.
For more on this subject, let's bring in Customs and Border Protection Senior Advisor Ron Vitiello. Ron, it's good to see you. So we just heard that report from Bill Malugin. It was one of the first thoughts that I had when this reporting first emerged, that there might be terror cells that Iran was at least threatening to activate, potentially even here in the homeland. You had this unvetted border, this insecure border for years. How do you assess this threat?
Well, it's a real threat, and people need to be vigilant. That's why the secretary showing leadership changed the National Terrorism Advisory Bulletin that we do jointly with the FBI to make sure the state and local partners that are out there, the front line of law enforcement, understands that because of what's happening over there, it could affect us here and it could affect the people. But to your obvious point, the 2 million Gotaways, so maybe 20 million people came to the United States during the Biden presidency. And their own secretary, we have a real secretary now, their old secretary, the old secretary told us that 85% of those people were released into America. And so what I can tell you from being an operator for that long, you don't get time. When you have 5,000 people coming across the border illegally every night, you don't have time to vet people the way you want to. You don't have time to do deep dive interviews and get the information that's in their phone or in their pockets. They were overwhelmed for almost 4 years. That nonsense at the border is over. We've seen a 99% decrease in crossings at the southwest border and a 100% increase in the capability of the front line. And they're out there stress-free in a risky environment because they can now do their job and they know that the Oval Office and the secretary has their back.
Ron, so we've been looking at the numbers, 1,500 arrested. How easily or how difficult is it for Customs and Border Patrol, ICE, the members of law enforcement to identify potential Iranian nationals in this country who are a danger to the U.S., potentially?
The front line does this very well. The collection for intelligence and what they know before, like if someone's coming in from another country on an airplane or at sea, even in the land border, they understand when they're coming and where they're coming from. The open border between the ports under Joe Biden, it's nearly impossible to vet that many people. And we certainly didn't vet the 10 million that got away, or the 2 million on record that got away. And so if you give the front line the tools and the time, they can typically solve this problem. But it is It is a matter of what we already know about the individual and then what we share with the country they're coming from. And in the case of Iran, if they were sending people over here that they didn't, that were going to do this sleeper cell kind of activity, or if they're going to get radicalized while they're here, or instructions from the Iranians, that would be very difficult to find.
Yeah, and of course, if people cross the border illegally and there's a microphone in their face, hey, why are you coming from Iran? It's like, oh, I'm afraid of the regime. I'm sure that's true for many of them. But if you're here to join a sleeper cell, you're not going to tell Bill Melugin or anyone else. That's part of the concern here. And of course, we're tracking it. Ron Vitiello, good to see you. Thank you.